Hello and welcome to Harper Podcast. I'm your host, Amrita Tripathi. I'm a writer, a reader, and someone who's very interested in the world of books. So on this journey, you'll be hearing from writers from the HarperCollins universe talking about their books, the big ideas, and even how ideas can change the world we live in. On this episode of Harper Podcast, join me, Amrita Tripathi, as I chat with the best-selling Monika Halan on our books, including the latest Let's Talk Legacy. This is a book we're going to co-write, she tells us, and urges all of us to take our legacy planning seriously. It's never too early, she says. We chat about her own inspiration and stories that have stayed with her, as well as some of her top tips around financial planning. You don't want to miss it. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this brand new episode of Harper Podcast with me, Amrita Tripathi, in conversation today with a very brilliant, very best-selling Monika Halan. I'm going to bring her on. Say hi. Hi, Monika. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for calling me. Lovely to be here.
And Monika, you're the author, of course, of multiple books. We have Let's Talk Legacy, which is the latest one we're going to be talking about. There's Let's Talk Mutual Funds. And it was all kicked off with Let's Talk Money several years ago, which kicked off this brilliant series. You have a career spanning the media, public policy, financial education. But let me start by asking you really, what really drew you to this space and why was it important? I mean, why is it still important for all of us to take financial education so serious?
So what drew me actually was a job where I started as, a new magazine was being launched. This is 1997, and India's first personal finance magazine was being launched. It was then called Intelligent Investor. And I moved from Economic Times to this new startup magazine, which was from the Outlook Group, not really knowing anything about personal finance. Remember, this is 1997, and retail finance had not taken off. So for me, it was a jump in the complete dark. And at a personal level, I took this decision because I had a small baby and the Outlook office was halfway nearer home. So, career decisions are made sometimes on very, very strange pieces of information. Little did I know that a whole new career would open up in front of me just because I wanted to be closer to home. So people have dissuaded me that you're leaving a big brand like Economic Times, and what is even personal finance? Who knows? But, as I understood the space, I realized that we don't know enough. We are either very risk averse or we go straight into speculation. This structured risk, this planning, just building financial stability is not something that we do. So just as the career grew in personal finance, I just got deeper and deeper into it, and it became like a personal mission, personal passion to essentially change the way India thinks about money, to move people from a poverty mindset to a wealth mindset, to help people not get rich overnight, because I don't know how that works, but just building in financial stability. So that's really been the journey.
And it's incredible to see where you've reached. And you said, as you said, you never know how you make those career decisions, but it's been the right. So you're right. one of the first and one of the few women leaders in this space. And we usually don't want to make things about everything is not about a gender lens. But I do want to ask you, and from conversations in the past, I know that we definitely in India need to undo. I don't know whether it's conditioning or groupthink or whatever it is, but to have women take the lead on their own financial planning. Can you share some of your insight on that?
Yeah, it is, there is a gender bias, no doubt about it. And I'll share a funny story. Some years back, I was buying a car for myself. And, I talked to the dealer, he came over. So I was more interested in the EMI numbers. And he at some point says, "Ma'am, color kaun sa lengi?" So he was trying to deflect me into the softer part of the decision. Whereas what I wanted to really talk about was the numbers of the upfront, the EMI and all of that. So there is, and this is what a lot of women also share, that when they go to, say, a financial advisor or a bank, they don't get taken seriously, even if they are using, even if they are, they know what it is about. they're typically not taken seriously. So I think these are legacy issues of the past where women did not participate so much in asset creation. Their role was restricted more to managing the household budget, which they've done so well. But
Hmm.
this transition into actually doing the asset piece, just uh, the decision moves from thousands to lakhs. That's where the women sort of step back. So I think these are societal issues. And the more that other women see women taking leadership positions in finance, the easier it becomes. And with Let's Talk Money, that's what I realized, that a lot of times the men bought the book, but then they gave it to their wives, sisters, daughters, and they found it a very easy onboarding on finance.
Hmm.
So I think everything that we do does make that little bit of shift. It pushes the boundaries little by little, and that's really what I do.
Which I love. And you've been such a torchbearer. And the conversations we've hosted or had you host or facilitate in the past, also we've seen that partly it's also, of course, providing the knowledge, but also providing the confidence. I think, and with your books, you can
Yeah,
you have the
that you
chapters.
can do it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not tough. I mean, I always tell the women audiences, like, you can, you are a scientist, you're a lawyer, you are you're a housewife, you manage the complicated Indian joint family, you can drive a car, you can run a washing machine, you can do your finances.
yeah, yeah. If you can
And
manage a
yeah,
joint family, I feel
yeah,
like you can do pretty much
absolutely.
anything.
That's one
Uh,
that's the one that they like and identify with and say, yeah,
yeah.
oh, well, I can do that. So I said, managing finances is a piece of cake after that.
So let me ask you a little bit about this is the book you've told your readers. Let's talk legacy. You said we're going to be co-writing this with you, and you've actually
Yes.
left these lovely sections for people to follow, chapter wise. But if I take one step back before I ask you why it's so important to talk about legacy planning, and you share this in the book, can you unpack a little bit about why it's such an emotional issue? Because it's one of those things that our hackles go
Yeah.
up. We're like, wait, I'm too young, I'm
Yeah.
too old, I don't want to. Why is it such an
Correct.
issue?
I think it brings home the point that you are not well organized, that your finances are in a mess, you don't have enough. So these are the things which come home when you start to document your finances, that you don't have a plan, which is why a lot of people resist doing that, because you're forced to see yourself in the mirror and you're forced to say that I don't know where this is going. You're forced to also see what your returns might have been. And some of your bad decisions may come home and stare at you in the face. Things your spouse may have warned you about, but you went ahead and made that investment. And when you start documenting it, it comes home, and you don't want to admit that you were wrong, or that you don't have a plan, or that your finances are in a mess. So that's one part of the reason, that you don't want to face the reality that it is really a mess. And even people with a lot of money have things like asset bleed. A lot
Yeah.
of the HNI portfolios I see, it's a mess. They have everything. They don't have a plan, but they will have all kinds of products. They'll have 30 mutual fund schemes. They will
Yeah.
have 2 AIFs. They'll have some REITs. They'll have some PMSs. And it doesn't sort of tell me your story. You're just chasing return. That's not the point of a portfolio. Right? So when you start documenting, it comes home to you. So that's one part. The other part, of course, is in families, money becomes a really emotive issue. It's a power struggle in many families. It's also about the inheritances. So a lot of the older generation, people who are in their 70s and 80s, will also hesitate to write a will. They will hesitate to document a lot of these things, because then again you have to take decisions as to who inherits what, and that becomes a real bone of contention in many, many families. So I think money is one of those issues where it's not about the money, it's about everything else. It's about confidence, it's about insecurity, it's about family politics, it's about favorite children versus children not liked, it's about sibling rivalry. And I think we need to put it out there that this whole drama of this wonderful Indian family, yeah, families are wonderful, but just beneath the surface, more than 60% of the civil court cases have to do with property disputes. In who? In families. So beneath this lovely veneer of we are such a great, happy family. There are so many tensions. I think the more we talk about it, the more it comes out.
And, so it's one thing to have like messy families or dysfunctional families and, the way things change.
Yeah.
And you said so many disputes. You have, in that sort of dedication space of Let's Talk Legacy, this is to the families of those whose money sits unclaimed with the government. It just takes a notebook that has the details. Like how big of a problem is this? Can you share?
Thousands of crores, thousands of crores. There's literally thousands of crores of unclaimed deposits with the banks, with insurance companies. There are some unclaimed deposits with the pension funds, provident funds. The list just goes on and on and on. So people buy these assets, forget to tell them their families, and this money then remains unclaimed. So this is a huge problem. And just making a note of what you have bought, where is the paperwork, putting in nominees, and telling the nominee, look, you are the nominee, so that at least that person knows that that asset is there. So after people pass, it's a wild goose chase for a lot of families. They look up diaries, they'll try and open the phone and the laptop, they'll try and find the paperwork. So some people are very organized. They'll maintain a diary, they will have their file where all the files are neatly labeled. But I think 90% of the people don't do that, which sort of results in the family really struggling to piece together where the assets are, where is the paperwork.
So you kind of like idiot-proofed it for us, because you have these lists here where you're like, to the point of saying like, here's my Aadhaar, here's my savings account, here's my fixed deposit, separate categories.
Correct. So I've chapterized it. So this is a book in which I've hardly written. I expect you to write.
Yeah.
I expect you to fill this book. And my suggestion is you first use a pencil, because things like passwords will change. And one of the criticisms is that why will anyone write the passwords down? Because you will forget there are at least 50 passwords that we use, and these passwords keep changing. So don't leave this book lying around. Wherever you keep your jewelry and cash in the house, you please keep this book under lock and key. It doesn't belong to your bookshelf. It belongs in your home locker. And then, the other lot are saying that you can use encryption, you can use the passwords. But not everybody is tech savvy. Not everybody can use those passwords. So if you use them and you're comfortable, super. But what happens if you're not there? How does your family access those passwords?
Yeah.
Have you thought about that? I don't think you have. So the logic of having it written down, and also this discipline of every time you change your password to go back to that notebook, erase out your penciled password, write the new one. And I can tell you, because I've actually done it for 15 years. I've maintained my own diary, and this is the result of taking what I have done for my family out to the other people. And I've used this personally. Every time I change a password online, wherever, I go back and change it in that diary that I maintain.
Yeah.
So that's really the idea, that let your family not struggle. I mean, they struggle with an emotional loss.
Yeah.
But let it not be a financial mess. That's all.
Let not be compounded by that mess of like, I mean, that's also hard right. When folks are bereaved. That can be just even harder to deal with, right? Because you have this like maze to navigate. You had this really fun. I mean, it's also a sort of way to inspire us to get organized, because you had a really funny anecdote in here about a wife who was about to throw away the husband's master password or something because it was on some chit.
So this is they're very close friends of ours, and so I was discussing this book with them, and they shared this story that the husband has a nice system. He has everything online in Excel sheets. To access those Excel sheets needs a password, which he writes down and keeps in the office locker. So one day the wife goes there, finds a scrap of paper, almost throws it away, saying it's just a scrap of paper. Luckily, she doesn't, because had she thrown that away, there was no way for them to recover that file. Okay, if you lose that password on an Excel sheet, you're not going to be able to recover it. So, I'm very scared of storing these things digitally, because one is that clouds can get hacked. Your computer can get hacked. It can crash.
Yeah.
What if you lose that password? So I understand that it is difficult to understand that written down passwords are not are actually safe if you look after them, and things that you do digitally are far more unsafe, according to me, because you have all kinds of dark web guys who have a chance of completely hacking into your financial life. So I would say be a little careful.
Yeah. And now you're seeing so many scams and, especially AI enabled
Yeah.
scams and
Yeah.
stuff around
No, and
finances.
also this book, this Let's Talk Legacy, goes a little bit further than just your financial record. Because you know what? Modern urban life has so many relationships. You will have a Wi-Fi, you'll have OTT, you will have lists of doctors, CAs, financial planners, club memberships. You will have all kinds of gas, electricity. The Let's Talk Legacy has a place where you can document each of these relationships. Okay, right from the doctor's name to his phone number and what specialty, your OTT, Wi-Fi, your social media username, passwords. I mean, how many times have I struggled to find my Twitter password because I've forgotten, but because I've written it down, I know I can go there and get it. So it actually is much more than something that you leave for your family. It's something that you will continue to use as you live.
So, Monica, what sort of inspired you? Because the Let's Talk Money, it was also organically growing out of the work you were doing, right? A
Yeah.
sort of trailblazer in that space. Let's Talk Mutual Funds came out many years later because you also there was a demand for it. I know that you had readers coming up and asking you to
That's right.
update.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What inspired you to write this one?
I think it was COVID, because during that time, I got so many calls from predominantly women whose husbands had suddenly passed away at the age of in their 30s and their 40s. And these are corporate women, huh? They're MBAs, they're educated, they run large, they do they're out there working. But this part the husband used to handle, and he died and they had no idea. They literally had no idea where anything was, what the assets were, because you think, yeah, we'll update, we'll do it next, we'll do it at some point. So this whole thing of recovering somebody's financial life was so nightmarish. So that's what triggered, and I know that I have that system because I'm the one who looks after all the finances in the home. So my fear from the beginning was, if something happens to me, how does the family know where the assets are? So since I've been personally documenting my financial life, I thought this is something I can take out to others and just encourage them. I mean, don't buy the book if you don't want to. If you have your own system, do it. I mean, make your own notebook. The idea is that you should do it. You use my book, it's great. It gives you a structure to do it. But if you want to do it in any other way, please go and do it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing you say there, which does ring true, is that there's no age that's really too young to start, right? Because you
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
said, you're
yeah.
getting a handle on organizing your finances as well, which we
Yeah,
shouldn't shy.
absolutely. It's your entire life that you're organizing. Like I said, there's electricity, water, Wi-Fi, OTT, utilities. Everything today is a username password.
Yeah, yeah, and
So why not just document it in one place? Just and I can't remember all the passwords, and you're not supposed to have very easy passwords. So why not just document it? And then
so
please put the book under lock and key.
most importantly, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Like you said, not on your bookshelf, but in the safe or
Yes.
locker or.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you a little bit now, and we take a step back and look at the financial education you've been it's sort of become your mission. What are some of the interesting anecdotes along the way? Because I know people share with you online, but also offline when they meet you or you're doing sessions or talking to people. What are some
Yeah.
anecdotes that stay with you? Maybe of the change or impact you've had, or something that stays with you.
So the interesting thing is that a lot of people are now beginning to ask me second generation questions on Let's Talk Money. So the system is created of the three bank accounts. You separate your saving and spending. So the second generation questions are beginning to come, that is there any situation in which money can move from the invested account to the income account? So they're building on the work that I've done, they're personalizing it, and then they have further questions. I find that incredibly satisfying, that people are actually using it and then having further questions. So that's one. The second is I run this podcast, Let's Talk Money with Monika Halan. It's on all the platforms. And where it's an audio podcast, people send in their questions. I get very, very interesting questions. A lot of it has to do with interfamily issues. So there are, of course, portfolio questions and all that. But, somebody whose father has a very old house and the maintenance is taking up too much money, and this, the next generation is not wanting to sustain that, but is caught in the family business. So those kind of questions are very, very interesting, that what do you do? Or this lady wrote to me. She said, we go to a financial planner, my husband and and I find that the planner has put me in debt funds and my husband in equity funds. That's unfair. And when confronted, the planner said, yeah, we made a mistake. Now I'll do equity for you. I mean, that's just wrong. The asset allocation should have been equal. Why put her in debt? That's just not fair. So, so such kind of questions, which are really real people, real things. And when they come and ask you for advice, rather than saying, I have 5 lakh rupees, what to do with it?
Yeah.
Money is much more than that. It's a lot about these interfamily. And there's one guy who wrote in who said, please change my name. But, I'm the only earning member. I have a wife and 2 kids. And the wife wants a lifestyle. She wants foreign holidays. She wants branded clothes and jewelry and bags, and wants the best schools for the kids and wants a fancy retirement. He says, I don't have the money. I've given her your book, but she just doesn't understand. So he's really trying to make it work, but there is a spouse who just doesn't understand that there is a limit to what he can do. And she's not pulling her weight by actually going out and earning the money. She's just spending the money that he's earning. Of course, it's a unit. But if you're a unit, then you also need to understand their limits to this expenditure. So these kind of personal questions are what tell me that people are also, trusting the process enough to say that it's a safe space, I can ask this question.
Yeah, which we would not have been there if you not created that sort of space.
Yeah.
If we had to ask you 3 tips, I know you do this a lot, so I know you'll have them. It'll be like a rapid fire. 3 tips that we should know about our money. And I will say, I've heard you reiterate this, including on this lovely episode you had on your podcast about, what happens, God forbid, but you lose a job. If there's attrition, you kind of explained what are some of the things you can do immediately after. But even for people who are not facing a layoff or attrition, got this very clear sense of like, look at how you can organize your finances, be ready with that 6 months of expenditure and cost. And I think the one that comes up a lot is make sure you separate your savings from your cash flow.
That's right. That's really my first step. It's such a no-brainer. And people who use it find it so incredibly useful. I get a lot of feedback on Twitter, social media. And that's been this one thing which has really put people in control. Just this thing of separating out spending from saving, using 3 bank accounts, moving the money that you're going to save out of your spending money and keeping it in a separate account, waiting to get invested, and then spending what you have decided to spend. So in many ways, it puts you in control of so many things, of how much you want to save, how much you want to spend. And then when you decided that I'm going to spend this much money and there is something left at the end of the month, you can also do guilt-free spending. You can be nice to yourself and spend because you've already saved your targeted amount. Right? So that's your first thing. Second, of course, is that emergency fund. And that's across the board. No matter who you are, you need at least 6 months of living expenses, right? In a liquid form. And the other thing is don't look for a high return on this money. This is not money which is going to make you rich. This is money which is your oxygen when things go wrong, when you have a job loss, when something suddenly happens. This is the money that you go to. So that's really number 2. And third is you put your seatbelts on, your insurances, a health insurance policy and a pure term life insurance cover. Of course, you don't buy bundled insurance. You don't buy ULIPs. You don't buy money back and endowment. You don't buy that. It doesn't work for you. So you put on your seatbelts before you start investing. So there's a whole lot of prep work that I make people do before you start investing for short, medium, and long-term goals. So it's really like learning how to swim. You first learn in the shallow before you go to the deep end. So these are the preparatory steps before you start investing. Whereas what most people do is go to the market and say, oh, small caps are doing well, so I will invest in small caps. You will lose money always. You will always lose money.
And I still remember, I think one of the first group chats we had when you told us about flips, and all of us were like, "Oh God!" Because I think the first thing we had done was get that sort of life insurance bundle. And I did the maths first. I think you showed us a slide which was just like, you're losing money on this. So I got out of mine. Good luck to the rest of you who are trying to get out of yours. You also said, Monika, which is interesting, that when people think of gold as an investment, you're like, gold jewelry is not an investment. So there's two
Correct.
things I've heard you
Yes.
say, which I'd love you to share a little bit here as well. That's one. And the second is when people, you talked about spouses earlier, but the spouse is buying, instead of buying you the luxury bag, invest in a mutual fund or some sort of bond for you. Can
Yeah.
you take us through that train of thought as well?
Yeah, right. So gold jewelry is not an investment because it loses value. They are making charges. Almost 30% gets knocked off. So if you are investing in gold, and a lot of women find it easy to buy gold, so buy the simplest possible thing, like a gold bar or something. If you are not onboarded onto financial products, and gold is that one thing that you can put in your locker and it gives you security, I have no problem with that. But don't buy some complicated jewelry and say this is an investment, because you're losing a lot to the making charges. I also find physical gold very difficult. It's an asset which can get stolen away. So then I would want to nudge them towards gold ETF or the sovereign gold bond. I think the sovereign gold bond is a great choice that people have. But the minute you're moving to financial assets, then you may as well expand your horizon and then buy on board products like mutual funds. So that's the first piece. I'm forgetting your second question, Amrita. Sorry.
You also said, if you're looking for gift ideas, let's say for a spouse or a loved one, instead of going for the
Oh,
luxury
yeah,
hand.
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. And so, a lot of people, when I start, especially women, when I talk about money investing, I have heard this, that I invest in silk saris and luxury bags. And I have to like literally stop myself from laughing, because who's ever going to sell a silk sari, and who is selling a luxury bag? Those are not investments. I'm sorry. And if you're, again, try and get assets in your name. Don't get fobbed off by a piece of trinket or a bag or something. I mean, these are trinkets. Don't get fobbed off with that. Ask for assets in your name. Then that is empowerment. Whatever it is, property, mutual funds, whatever assets there are, that is your asset, not a luxury bag. I'm sorry.
Yeah, unless it comes in your savings at the end of the month, and you like, treat yourself, buy it for yourself, guilt free.
Yeah, if that's right. I mean, if that's what floats your boat, okay. But yeah.
But the other thing I wanted to say is, what I love about your podcast, and also the way you've done your books and your columns over the years, is it's not intimidating. It's like, it's not. I would say it's authoritative, but not intimidating. So, you don't seem to judge people. I suppose unless the
Yeah.
same people come back with the same mistakes over and over, then you probably would be like, that's Stone. Like, I told you so in chapter one, book one. But as we wind this episode down, I'd love to ask you, Monika, a couple more questions. One, what do you like about being a podcaster? What are some of your tips and your highs and lows of that journey? Are you enjoying this new medium? It's not new anymore, but
Yeah, I know. So it's been interesting because my format is a little different. Normally, podcasts have guests, but for me, I'm just talking to my listeners. So I do one piece of whether it's a news thing or I take up a subject or a topic, and then I answer 3 to 4 questions, audience questions. They mail it to me, and then I answer it during the podcast. So it's about a 15-20 minute episode. I think for me, the big high was the way people have written in with appreciating the book, appreciating the podcast, and saying how it has changed their lives. And that for me, I think, is more than money. So that's been a fantastic journey. Just hearing back from people who have benefited from the work that I've done.
that's huge. And then I saw some of your posts on social, where, especially when you see multiple books of your own on the bestseller shelves, like, I saw at the
Yeah,
airport.
that's of course.
Pretty
Yeah,
cool,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I travel so much,
Yeah.
and every time you walk past, all the 3 books are there.
Yeah.
And I go and talk to all the, the staff there and say, ma'am, bahut achhi book hai. People come and ask for it. Some people come and buy 10 copies, so it's good. It's nice.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool in
Yeah.
terms of legacy as well, right? In terms
Yeah.
of financial
Yeah.
education and legacy. And then last question for you, two-part. One is what inspires you today in your own journey, personal, professional. And the second part is anything you're reading you'd like our readers or listeners to know.
I think what inspires me is just, it's not to do with money, but just constantly, be the best version of yourself as much as possible. So it's an internal sort of cleansing that is this who you want to be at every moment? So that is really the story for me, is that. And what I'm reading right now is a book called Life Divine by Sri Aurobindo.
Okay.
So let me just actually show it. So it's a very difficult book to read. I have actually joined a class to read it. This is what I'm reading right now. So that's what inspires me.
That's incredible. Is there any overlap with the nothing in the financial and the
Oh
spirit?
yeah, there is. Of course. I mean, not an overlap, but so the philosophy is that you are a trustee of the money. You should neither shrink away from it nor have too much of an attachment to it, but use it in the service of the divine. Essentially that.
Wow, that's profound. That is profound.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the philosophy. Yeah. So this whole attitude that money is bad, there is a problem with that. And this whole attachment that I need to have so much. I will be happy when I have that much. But just to be a trustee of what you have. And then, that has, it has so many things that if that is the attitude, then what is it that money is buying for you? Are you buying stuff which is actually harming you? Are you putting stuff into your body which is not good for the body? What are you doing with the money that you have? How you earn it and how you spend it. It's a reflection of your entire life. So for me, that is the journey.
That's incredible. That's very moving. Thank you for sharing that. And, it's inspiring always to talk to you and read you and listen to you. So thank you for taking out the time today. It's been lovely.
Thank you. Lovely conversation. Thank you, Amrita.
You're listening to Harper Podcast, and we certainly hope you enjoyed listening. Stay tuned for more episodes. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, and Hubhopper. You can also stay updated with HarperCollins' new books, subscribe to the Harper Broadcast newsletter, and find us on social.